And here we are.
Love that intro music. I'm right there with
Right?
it. I love it.
It's so good.
Yeah,
Shout out
yeah,
to
yeah.
Asher who came up with that.
mm.
Okay, I don't know what's happening now though. Like
Just-
that is not how this was
it's
supposed to be
Friday.
going.
We're excited
What are you excited about with
because
Friday?
it's Friday.
It's Friday.
You can't not be excited on Fridays and Mondays.
That's Fridays, Mondays. I'm excited every day.
Pretty much every day.
Every day. Yep.
Mondays, I think Monday's my favorite.
Fridays and Mondays and the days in between.
I gotta log into Novatech and make some money today. It's Friday, the compound interest day.
All right. Well, hey. Oh, true.
Yeah.
But what's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to Scale Through the Fail. I need to start calling it that. Scale Through the Fail. I'm your host. You guys have never seen me before. Wow. I said I'm your host, and then 3 people immediately left.
Maybe you shouldn't do that again.
All three of our people that were watching.
It's okay. Come back.
They're all gone.
Come on back. It's not just him.
Anyway, I'm your host, Robert Bean, and I have amazing co-hosts with me today, Chris Rains and Walter Key. And we have, guys, I've got a special treat for you today. We have a very exciting topic to discuss. It's something that I have personally been seeing come up in my circle, but also all over social media recently. And I think as the market continues to go the way that it will, it's going to keep coming up. And that topic is how to break up with your clients. But let me preface, it's not how to break up with your clients in any way. It's how to break up with your clients respectfully, without burning bridges, no matter how nasty they are, no matter how rude they are. How do you break up with a client? We can even dabble a little bit into when should you break up with a client. And then if we have time, depending on how steamy this conversation gets, we can also talk a little bit about how to break up with your team leader or an agent on your team, and how to break up with your broker or an agent at your brokerage. Because these are topics that are not talked about. These are topics that if you go to YouTube right now, there's really nothing that shows you how to continue to build your business and retain your integrity while also separating yourself from people you don't want to be around. Clients, agents, brokerages, teams, whatever, it doesn't matter. So some of you have seen this topic come up in our inner circle too, and I bet you guys have seen it on social media recently as well, probably because Facebook is reading the messages. So they're like, oh, Robert's talking about this with an agent. Let's show him some more posts like that. Shout out to Catherine Polsonelli, first one to comment today. You win a prize. Insert sound gift. Do, do, do. The prize is I shouted you out. Gave you a shout out. That's the prize. We'll get better prizes, I promise, everybody. I don't know what they're going to be. Okay, so with that being said, before we get started, there we go. Whoop, whoop. A couple questions for the audience. One is, for the audience, have you ever broken up with a client, agent, team leader, or brokerage, right? Have you ever broken up with anybody in the real estate industry? Shoot, we can throw partners in there, lenders, inspectors. It's so much of it is the same, right? It's you making conscious decisions for your business. Shout out to Kim number 2 coming in with the comment. Insert sound. I'm gonna buy a soundboard today. That would have been so much fun to just or something like that. But now a question for Chris. This is not your explanation yet, okay? Not your explanation yet. Just simple question. Have you ever broken up with a client?
Absolutely.
Okay. Walter, have you ever broken up with a client?
Yep.
Robert, have you ever broken up with a client? I think so. I just don't know if they knew it. Okay. So which one of you guys would like to start off with your approach? I haven't really thought about how to structure this.
We're doing backstory first to explain.
So here's the thing. What I was thinking is I'm going to give you guys a couple different scenarios. Basically, I'm thinking 2 polar scenarios. One is the worst of the worst, right? And then one is it's actually good, but it's you. your life changed, your business changed, you realized that you were overcommitted, something like that. So two different options. One, it's them. They're the problem. They're a nightmare, right? And the other is life happened and you realized you needed to make a shift. So let's start off with worst case scenario, because I think that's going to be a fun one. So let's see a backstory. I'm going to use one I actually saw on Facebook a while ago. If anybody's got any nightmare stories of clients you did break up with or should have break up with, drop it in the comments. We'd love to see these stories and maybe help some people with some objections. So I'm going to use a story that I thought of. This one is honestly pretty brutal. So this is why I think it's a good one. I saw it on Facebook. Shout out to that agent who still handled it in a classy way, and shout down to the 500 comments they got of telling this agent to not handle it in a classy way. Boo, you guys are terrible. Don't give that type of advice. Okay, so here's the scenario. Agent comes in, they get this client, they're working with the client. Right off the bat, the client's kind of a know-it-all. Listen, happens, right? That's not the worst part. Is a know-it-all. And then over the course of the relationship with the client, the agent's still getting the job done, but the market is the market. Then the client starts to make backhanded remarks about the agent's weight, the agent's appearance, so demeaning, disrespectful. Then that same client introduces them, so this is where it gets weird, to a referral, a family member. And that family member starts to mock them about their weight or their demeanor, how they talk, like just anything they could possibly find to insult this person. Okay. It's like pretty horrible already. Just mean. But here's the caveat and where this gets difficult. And again, we're going to play from where you guys believe. You can either choose the path of when to break up with a client or I would break up with that client. Doesn't matter. But they went under contract. So the big caveat is they're super mean, rude, disrespectful, demeaning, don't respect them in their job, but they still got under contract. All right, who wants to take this one first? Choose which path you would take. And why? The when, or when you would break up with them, or I wouldn't break up with them, and then explain your reasoning.
Chris, rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah,
No, I'm just kidding. You go ahead. You're bald and beautiful. You got
it. And break up with clients.
Yeah, and I'm broken up with. All right, good. That was the sexiest move I had. Not good. Let's see. So for me, I'm under contract already. I'm on, and it sounds like under contract either on a listing or a purchase. Was it a listing or a purchase?
Purchase.
All right. I'm under contract on a listing. By that point, I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of showings. I'm going to suck that one out, man. I'm just going to suffer through it and just keep going. I'm under contract. I'm going to barrel through. And more than likely, if I've got a good lender, it's going to be a 30-day close or less. I can deal with about anything for 30 days. If it's cash deal, I'm going to make sure I'm get that thing wrapped up. If it's a know-it-all, maybe they got a lot of money, and we can just go ahead and get that thing wrapped up in about 10 days, and we are moving on, smooth sailing. I never talk to that person again. So that's probably how I'm going to handle that. You can talk about my weight. You can talk about me being bald. You can make fun of me. I really don't care. At the end of the day, as long as I'm getting paid.
So if you're under contract, I want to make sure it's very clear. If you're under contract, you will pretty much do whatever it takes and deal with, tolerate whatever comes at you if you're under contract to get the deal closed.
Correct.
Right? Now, let me ask you this, though. Is there at any point that you can think of, any lines that would be crossed to where even under contract, you would break up with a client? Can you think of anything? Because I'm kind of with you. Like if we're under contract,
if I've dealt with you this long, I'm getting paid. Basically, I'm going to knock this thing out. So, but you're saying so once we go under contract, something. What line would have to be crossed? I mean, I'm pretty strong-willed, so even if they start to cross a particular line of some sort, I've got no problem having the discussion and saying, "Hey, look, like, we need to get this contract done. Let's not cross that again. Let's not do that again." I'm pretty patient and resilient, but I don't know. I mean, the only things that I can think of aren't even directed towards me. It would be directed towards like my wife or kid or somebody else that I would probably get more defensive of. So, I mean, I can take whatever. You can say whatever you want about me. I don't really care. Okay. So, I mean, that's kind of the issue there. But once again, that's once we're under contract. If you're a complete douche prior to getting under contract and you've got me to a point where I want to break up with you, at that point, we also have to decide, is it a prospect or a client too? Because there's a lot of prospects out there that people think they're breaking up with, when in reality, that's not even a client. You don't even have a bound buyer's agreement. You've showed them a couple homes, whatever you're trying to work through, you're trying to build up that relationship. If the relationship sucks from the get-go, just don't call them back. They're not going to call you. And if they do, just say, "Hey, look, sorry, I'm busy. Like, let me refer you to somebody else that might think I've got something that's come up with me personally. I've got some extra things. I got some health issues I'm dealing with, whatever it is. I've got some family issues I'm dealing with. Doesn't matter. You can literally come up with about anything. We all know that things come up in our lives. I've got a kid. You've got a kid. Like, that's not hard to come up with. Is there constantly something that's taking me away from real estate? Constantly, a wife knocking on the door saying, "Hey, the baby's thrown up 9 times today. I need some help." Like spit up everywhere. Like, it's constant. So does that mean I can't work with that client? No, but can it be that excuse for that particular situation? Absolutely. So I think that's the biggest thing, is distinguishing prospect or client. As long as you do not have a contract, a signed agreement, they're still a prospect.
All right. So, sorry, I had to fix the link. I literally sent people the link to join us as creators. Whoops. Let's see. So now let me flip the script on this. Well, actually, no, let's have Walter. Walter, all right, under contract, same story. Where do you fall in line? You heard Chris's kind of view on it.
Yeah, so I would caveat with, you need to be able to identify early on in the relationship if it's not going to be compatible, so that you don't put yourself in a position to have to suffer for 30 or 45 days because now I'm under contract and I want to go ahead and get paid for all of the misery I've suffered through so far. So let me just drudge it out. So really be smart about identifying this. It literally, if the relationship is not good from the get-go, think about moving on and focusing your time and energy on other relationships early. For me, I'm kind of the same way as Chris. If I'm under contract with you and you become a jerk, I'm going to do my best to extend a little grace. I'm going to assume that you are stressed because this is not something a client deals with every day, right? I deal with it every day. I deal with lenders and the title reps and the underwriters asking for stupid things and the appraiser saying, "Well, I'm not going to go do that again," right? We deal with it all the time. That can become incredibly stressful for a buyer or a seller who does not deal with it all the time. So if we go under contract and they become a jerk, I'm going to do my absolute best to be patient, to extend grace, and to understand that they are probably under a level of stress that they are simply not used to, and that they're not meaning to be this way. Now, if it gets rough, I'll absolutely have a conversation with them about, "Hey, listen, I realize you're probably stressed right now. I know you have a lot going on, but let's both be professional here." I will have that conversation. Now, there's a difference in, we went under contract and a few days later, they started to get nasty because they're stressed. And from the moment I started working with this person, they were stressing me out with their attitude, with the way they're talking to me, with the things that they say, the things that they're not listening to my professional counsel. They want me to do things that I know make no sense. And even after I tell them that doesn't make sense in this market, they want to do it anyway. All of those things are really, really good indicators. This isn't the relationship I want to have.
Yep.
And so before we get under contract, I'm going to go and have a conversation about why this isn't going to work. So if we're under contract, I'll probably do my best to extend them grace, put on my thick skin suit and roll with it. But I want to identify those I want to work with before I go under contract.
So then now let's slightly change the story. Same exact story. You're just not under contract. So insults after insults.
You're fired.
You fired.
So I had a client that wasn't even necessarily insulting, but he was like so bipolar that he just kept on and kept on. And it was like the conversation would start and then he would send me 20 messages in a row and not even give me a chance to respond back. And it just like boom, 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 boom. And it was like repeating himself over and over and over again. I couldn't take it, man. And it would be all times of the day and night. Like he would just get off on a tangent and just keep going. And it wouldn't even always be real estate related. It'd be like who they know and the groups that they're in, and they know they're rubbing shoulders with this person. I'm like, dude, I don't care. So that's one of the things I ran into. And once again, not taking any of the advice that I was giving them and pretty much telling me all the ways that they want things and this and that. And it's like, well, what if we break up my land and we do it this way? I'm like, dude, like the land is not, you can't break this land up. It is not shaped correctly to do all the things that you want to do. You're not going to get the value that you're thinking you're going to get. It needs to stay together. It was like 40 something acres. And, he just had all these ideas that he thought could work that just were not feasible. I went as far as going down, sitting with Ben at Bell & Alexander Title and going through the plot and was literally like, look, Ben, like from everything that you've seen come through, all the deals that you've closed, does any of this make sense? And he's like, no, he needs to sell it all together. I'm like, I went and went above and beyond and went with more than just myself. And he's like, look, the guy wanted to have like a piece of an island too, like basically break off 20 acres in the back that was not going to have any road access, thinking that he could get $1 million, $2 million, $4 million for it later. Like it did not make any sense whatsoever. Dude was nuts. Would not listen to me. And finally, I was like, look, man, I said, I've given you all the advice that I can. You've already got listing documents in your inbox. Like I've already sent them over with my plan. If you don't like my plan, I think we need to part ways. And he also was throwing out, well, if I sold this, for sale by owner today, you're not getting paid anything. It was like, by all means, sell it. Go for it. Like, more power to you. If you know somebody that wants to buy it, I encourage you to do so. Mm-hmm. So all in all, this was about a $2 million client that I sent packing.
Dang.
It just didn't make sense.
Classy though. That's the way to do it.
The money is not worth it. The amount of time that property was going to sit on the market, because he also wanted absolute top dollar in a shifting market for, that property. It just wasn't going to sell as quickly as he thought it was. And I knew, it could be 6 months I have to deal with this guy.
Yeah.
Maybe longer, maybe a year. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it was not worth it to me. Absolutely not.
So then let's talk about that then. Let's hear your breakup. What method did you use?
Oh, yeah. It was literally texting back and forth.
So you used texting. Ooh. I hope we never break up.
It was,
right,
it was him texting me.
I'm just giving you a hard time. Listen, it's your own
yeah.
business. I don't.
Hey.
Listen, there are some clients you don't call. That's the truth. There are some
I would be on the phone forever with this guy.
I know. I understand.
Yeah.
All right. So you chose texting. Summarize for us roughly what you said and why you said it. No, he's gonna pull it up.
I pretty much just summarized it.
That was it right there. Okay.
That was the brief synopsis of the thousands of messages.
Now I'm going to ask you, are you happy with the way that you broke up?
I'm happy it's gone.
That
So,
wasn't the question,
yeah,
though.
hey,
We're here to learn. We're here to be transparent. Do you
so
think you could have broken
literally,
up better?
I mean, so there's probably better ways of handling it, but I was like, look, I was like, if you're not comfortable with signing those documents by now, and like, I totally understand, no hard feelings here. You are welcome to sell it yourself, hire another agent, whatever you want to do. He had already interviewed other agents. He had already let everybody else go. I was the last one, right? I was the
Last
last
man standing.
Yeah, he was already like letting everybody else go because they didn't know what they were doing. They probably couldn't deal with him, and it was like I was the most resilient up to that point, and I was just like finally like, man, I can't imagine myself dealing with this for the next 6 months. So, basically, I let him go. He during that text, it was like a Friday. He was like, "Well, I'll give you till this evening to make your mind up what you want to do." I was like, dude, I literally just told you go sell the house or whatever go sell it yourself, whatever you want to do. Like, he's like, well, I'll give you till this evening to make your mind up what you want to do. I was like, I was shocked. And then later that evening, he started just texting me again, just going off again, just like randomly texting me and just sent another 20 text messages in a row about whatever else and said that somebody down the road, some farmer down the road came and chatted with him that morning about possibly buying land and blah, blah, like just a whole bunch of stuff. And finally I blocked him. I blocked him on Facebook. I blocked his phone, blocked everything. So
wow.
I just didn't want to deal with it.
That's crazy that you had to block him. Like that someone doesn't understand.
Yeah.
Wow.
If they don't stop, it's just not worth it, man. My phone already blows up. I don't need one person blowing my phone up more than everybody else combined all day long.
Yep.
I don't need it.
Yep.
That one client's not worth it. If I actually kept him on my freaking books and I took that listing, the amount of business I was going to lose from having to take care of him and babysit him and his messages and like Facebook messages and text messages and everything else, the amount of business I would lose during that time and the sanity that I would lose and prevent me from being able to service my other clients at my highest and best level is not worth it.
So that was I can't believe you had to block them. I've had to block people too, because it's like they just don't understand when you say no. So Walter, the other day, I know that you were helping an agent out along with me on talking about breaking up with a client.
Yeah.
And you had a really short, concise one. I would love for you to kind of share how you approach generally breaking up with a client, because you said that was kind of your rule of thumb and basically verbatim what you typically use. So do you want to kind of share how you go with those breakups?
Yeah. So thankfully I haven't had to do it a lot, but I've had to do it multiple times. And just like anything I teach, right? Anytime I'm talking to an agent about building their business, active prospecting, whatever it is, you guys know, I'm always, the relationship is the most important aspect of this business, because if you learn to build great relationships, you will build a great business. So we all conceptually know that.
Yep.
So I use that same thought process when I'm breaking up with a client. I tell the client directly, listen, this is a relationship-based business, and I just don't feel like you and I are compatible, and I don't want to drag you through a transaction that isn't going to be right for either of us. So I am more than, and I always say this too, I am more than happy to introduce you to another agent who might be more compatible with you, but you and I need to end our professional relationship. And that's kind of it. I mean, short to the point, nothing fancy.
There's a bunch of really important things though that are there.
Because, and the other piece is, I don't need to get into all of the reasons. I don't need to tell them this is what you're doing that annoys me. You're being condescending. You're overbearing. You're not listening. Like, I know that those are things, but it's not going to help this in any way for me to.
Well, I mean, but that's an important topic,
it's not going to help.
That's an important topic. And so kind of where I wanted to move towards next in this kind of segment is talking about the biggest mistakes that people make when they break up with anybody. Friends, family, brokers, team leaders, other agents, clients. Here's some of the biggest mistakes that I've seen, and then you guys are welcome to kind of add in. But let me give some shout outs to people in the comments. Calvin
Yeah, comment
Polkino
section's
says,
blowing up. They got some
your
good
morals
stuff
and
on there.
standards are more important than compromising them for a deal. There will be
Yes.
more. Really important mindset, abundance mindset. If you have an abundance mindset, you will view things differently. Chances are part of the reason why you feel the way you feel is because you have a scarcity mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You can insert that mindset into anything, personal life and business. So shout out to Catherine.
And that
well
can be
said.
really easy for an agent to do. Like Chris had a great example. He says it's a $2 million client. Most people aren't going to get a $2 million client, but here's the reality. In the time, in the energy, in the peace and, mental protection of that $2 million client, Chris could go out there and do 4 more $600,000 clients and make 2.4.
Yep.
You
and there's so
have
much
to
more
understand
too.
that your time, your energy, your emotional
And-
well-being is what
And I
makes
get
you
4
money in this
people I
business.
like working with that also send me referrals.
There you go.
So in business, when I did business development, some people use this phrase a dozen different ways. They slightly tweak the words, but we had something called true cost. You don't hear about true cost anywhere else unless you're generally deeply involved in business and finances. What true cost is, according to my definition, so everything I'm saying is not financial advice. It is just my interpretation and my opinion. But what true cost is what does it actually cost you, not just in money, in resources, in time, and in stress measures.
Yep.
So that's an important thing for agents to consider, is what's the true cost. Most agents are focused on the gross. What's the gross cost? Oh, the gross cost is I'm missing out on this client. No. Or the gross cost is, I should say, I'm dealing with a bad client, a difficult client. Here's the reality. There's a much greater cost, more than likely. And you need to make sure that you know that true cost. Now, so we're going to get to those mistakes in just a second, but I also want to shout out Joshua. Is it Grossman or Grossman? I never asked you. I think it's Grossman. He says, sometimes you have to fire bad clients. I mean, it's the truth. I mean, just sometimes you're going to have to do things in business you don't want to do. And some of those things are changing the people that are around you. And some of those things are changing you, changing yourself. So let's talk about the mistakes now. So I've been thinking about these mistakes for a bit because I've been seeing these for a long time. So for those who don't know me,
I don't make mistakes, for the record.
Yeah, right. That's why we have Chris here today. He will tell you how to be perfect.
Yes.
For everyone else,
Absolutely.
I did business consulting and development for a long time. Solo entrepreneur, plenty of failed businesses. I've also coached a lot of agents, team leaders, and things like that. So talking about breakups when it comes to business is where I have a lot of experience. And then I'll tell you that my perspective, first and foremost, because I do think your underlying beliefs are very important. My perspective comes from a Christian perspective, because your beliefs at the end of the day will dictate how you run your business and how you treat people. So one, you need to identify. So mistake number one is not knowing what you believe in. What do you believe in? What do you think is good, acceptable, right? If you don't know what you believe is good, then how can you address something that's bad? So that's first one is understanding what you believe in and being clear on what you believe in. I'm very clear. And so it's not hard for me to know when to draw the line because I am absolutely clear on where my morals stand, on where my ethics stand, and then on where my professionalism stands. So that's mistake number one is agents not knowing where their beliefs are, what their beliefs are, I should say. Mistake number two is they forget that they're in a service-based industry and they are servants meant to serve others through one of the top 3 most difficult and stressful parts of a person's life. And a lot of agents treat this as getting coffee at Starbucks. That person was rude, and therefore don't buy my coffee. Get out of my shop. Well, first of all, you're probably no treat yourself. I know. Who the heck says that? What? This guy works with agents and he doesn't tell them that they're all perfect and amazing? You're not. Your clients aren't. That's why you need to know what you believe in so that you know where you fall in line. You have had your bad days too. You have been rude to the servers. You have been nasty to other people who are just doing their job, and maybe it wasn't warranted to them as well. And you would hope that every restaurant and every person that you've ever been rude to doesn't ban you from doing business with them. You were rude to that teller at Kroger? You better hope all Kroger chains don't find out and then they ban you. No. You know why? Because they understand that you have a bad day, and the hope is that as long as you don't cross certain lines, we can continue to do business together and get through this. Okay? So basically, humility is really what I'm going to say is the first. Perspective and humility. This is one of the top 3 most stressful things. You need to be prepared to understand that means that they're going to be of the top most 3 stressful type of people ever. And you're the one who willingly and voluntarily said, I will receive you and guide you through one of the most difficult and stressful things in your life. Then you know what? Act like it. Act like it. Act like you're someone. That is like a therapist getting mad because people open up to them. What? What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense, right? We think that's ludicrous. Well, look at it. Oh my gosh, top 3 most stressful things someone goes through in a life. How dare they be stressed? And how dare that stress push them to be someone that's maybe unpleasant? So perspective and humility. Mistake number 3 is, in my opinion, kind of part of number 2, which is you make it about yourself when you go to break up with a client. So now we're getting into the actual breakup phase, right? Or I should ask, sorry, mistake number 3 is not properly vetting, which Walter talked about this very well. And Chris actually indirectly talked about this too. Work with people you want to work with. Listen, I love my wife and she has bad days too. I don't divorce her on the bad days because I love the person that I work with and I love the person that I'm married to, and I can handle the bad days just as much as I can handle the good days. So your clients should be the same way. Attract people that you want to work with so that on the bad days, it's just a bad day and you'll get through it. On the bad transactions, on the rough ones, it's just a rough transaction. We'll get through it. We'll get through it. My son has had colic for 3 months. I'm not throwing him out the window. Sorry. I understand. It's just a hard time. And we're going to get through that hard time together. So now we'll get into the breakup cycle, okay? Mistakes, and then, but first, Walter, Chris. So those top 3 were kind of my pre-breakup, pre-difficult client mistakes that I see. Would you guys agree? Anything to add to them?
No, I think that summarizes it pretty good. Know your self-worth, right? That's identity. That's belief system. This is the line that I won't let a client cross. Vet them properly with that belief system so that you know you're working with people you want to work with. And, you know, a tangent of that, a side tangent of that is you should be marketing to the people that you want to work with. You should be accepting the clients that you want to work with and saying no to the ones you don't. The money will always come with great relationships. So don't try to force a bad relationship. That doesn't help you any. Yeah.
250 million leads were sold last year. Yep. So if you think that there is not another person to replace that business with, you're lying to yourself. The data shows you 250 million leads. That's 2/3 of the entire population of the US were sold as leads. Okay.
That's almost as many leads as I can teach you how to get for free.
Almost.
That's a pretty big number. Almost as many. That's a pretty big number. So
Chris, Walter gave his perspective on those 3 mistakes leading up to this critical. I'm going to fire a client. Agree, disagree, anything to add?
Yeah. So pretty much if you don't have a plan, then your plan is to fail. You do need a plan
Well
on
said.
kind of what you want. You need to have a plan on what your business goals are, the people that you want to work with. You need to like envision, all right, this is what I want my real estate career to look like. These are the people I want to serve. If you don't know what that looks like, if you're just like, I'm going to help everybody, that's probably not going to work out well unless you're me. And I can help everybody, but not everybody can do that. I'm kidding. So if you guys can't tell, I like to joke around.
But you are pretty tolerant. You're one of the most resilient agents I know.
Pretty freaking tolerant. I can put up with about anybody. My wife says it's disgusting. So it's disgusting how much like I can put up with people, and it's disgusting how much people evidently like me. She's like, I don't understand. She's like, I hate everybody.
Sounds like my wife too.
I want to stay home. How do you deal with all this? So like, and I'm like, well,
I just do.
I just do. I don't even
do.
think of that. I just
Whatever.
do.
I'm working. I show up. I work.
Yeah, I just keep working, keep my head down. I know.
Ain't no thing. I'm not bringing those people home.
Yeah. So, I get home and I'm like, just normal day. Like everything could have been blowing up, fire around me or whatever, and I'm just still the same old. Just
it took a long time for me not to bring the stress of work home. Took a long time, and there's still what am I saying? Decompression? No, decompression. That comes. Yeah. There's still that part, but it's gotten a lot easier over the years because I know what I believe. I am more and more so over the years. Which, if you're a new agent, you're going to learn this the hard way. I'm learning who I want to work with and who I don't. Right, and then I'm vetting them based off of like what Chris just said and Walter just said. Your beliefs. Yes. Yes, you should vet your clients based off your beliefs. Guess what? If you run a vegan restaurant, you probably shouldn't market to carnivores.
Yep. Don't hit me up.
There's going to be a disconnect there. No matter how good it is, there's probably. Now, you might say, well, there might be that one who likes the way we cook. There might be, but how much time and money did you waste on trying to find the one when there was 100 over here waiting for you to build a relationship with them?
Yeah.
I can tell you that I'm not walking through that door.
That's right. You know what's so funny?
Not happening.
Chris, so before me, Chris had never had postcards to his past clients. And Chris knows where I'm going with this. This is funny. And then I came into the picture and changed Chris's life forever. I taught him about the wonderful world of CRMs and postcard automatic campaigns. And so I am California originally. So in California, people love cutting edge, edgy, fancy, vegan, keto, all that stuff. So my wife, who's brilliant and amazing, helped me create a recipe card that would go out once a month because everybody keeps recipe cards. By the way, in my next newsletter, I will be talking about postcards, aka tiny little billboards, and how I use them to gain a lot of business automatically. But anyway, these recipe cards go out once a month. And at some point, Chris messages me and he goes, hey, man, we got to change these recipes. And I'm like, why? These are good recipes. They're smart. They're innovative. They're unique. And then he shows me a text from a client, and the client's like, what the hell is this?
What they said literally their words were, what the hell is a vegan donut and why did you send this to me?
Yeah. and then Chris is like, listen,
I'm like,
we're in the South.
Yeah, we ain't California anymore, buddy.
Yeah. Like, what are you sending my clients? I'm like, number one, they're gonna know it's not me. For dang sure they know it's not me.
They've seen where you eat.
Absolutely not me. Like, if it's a deep fried donut wrapped in bacon, yeah, we're on it. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, Chris wrote this. But if it's vegan donuts, yeah, man. Mm-mm.
So knowing your audience, right? Knowing what you're connecting with. Now, what I really want to get into, because I think this is the meat and potatoes of the topic, which is twofold. One is kind of your general script that you use to break up with a client, because there are people right now that are listening, that have had to do this, want to do this, but also, again, the mistakes.
Send them
The
a vegan
do's and
donut
don'ts.
recipe. They'll break up with you.
Or they communicated more with Chris and had a good laugh with Chris over.
I was
A
able
vegan
to blame that on my partner and his wife.
Yep.
Yeah.
No problem there. You can blame me.
Yeah, I was like, sorry, they're insane, but it's okay.
Yep.
I still love them anyways.
Someone's got to. So do's and don'ts of actually breaking up. So the other three things have been established. You know what you believe in, even if you just learned it right now. That's okay. That's probably when you'll learn it. Is the first 1 or 2 times is when you're like, wow, I didn't think it was there, but that's where it is. So the line's been crossed. You're firing this client. Doesn't matter. We're not adding anything else to the story. And let me make something abundantly clear. It literally, unless it's illegal and you need to turn them over to the police, it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters in the story. Doesn't matter what they've said or done, again, unless you have a legal obligation to do something about it, or there's truly like physical protection that you need to do. Okay. So it doesn't matter. And that's why these points are going to be relevant to everybody. Absolutely everybody. So the first thing is, don't make it about yourself. Right? The first thing is, don't make it about yourself, because it doesn't matter. First of all, you're about to part ways. Well, earlier, it was it Walter or Chris? I don't remember which one of you said, but you were talking about the fact that people tend to add extra information to it. Now, why do we do that? What we're trying to do psychologically is win. We're trying to have the last word. We're trying to make it abundantly clear. Chris, you're the problem. I'm amazing. I'm great. And you forced me to do this. Now, the problem with that is, one, there's always something you can do better. Have some humility and have some grace. Because you wouldn't like someone talking to you this way either, more than likely.
Yeah.
The other problem with that is it doesn't take into account the future. And the reality is that this person exists within your sphere. You're working with them, which means they exist within your sphere to some degree. You might cross paths with them. They might know people that you know, et cetera, et cetera. When you make it about yourself and you add in your reasoning of why, and you make it personal, what do you think happens? It gets personal. Then people get offended. Then people get mad. Then people whisper bad things about you. They leave bad reviews. Listen, people, let's be real. People are mean without any incentive. People are just mean in general. Go check Facebook and go check reviews. There are literally people who have reviewed things. My wife and I have talked about this all the time. When we watch a new show, we'll go check the reviews, right? Like, oh, what's the review say? And there are little people like, I haven't watched the show yet, but I can't stand that actor. And I'm over there like, you rated a show bad and you haven't even watched it? Are you kidding me? That's how people are. That's the truth. And that's how they will be to you. And you need to assume that. So don't make it personal. Don't create an opportunity to make it worse. Right? So kind of that's my first don't make it about you. Don't make it personal. The second part of it is stick to it's not just stick to the facts, but it's stick to the script, if you will. So you realize you're not going to make it personal. What happens is that agents, some of them will start it off really good, and then the person responds. And then all the hard work they did is undone. So that's kind of where it's like, stick to the facts. I don't know, stick to the script, stick to the plan. Maybe stick to the plan's better. The plan is you're going to be respectful, and you need to stick to that. And it doesn't matter. Whatever, it doesn't matter, guys. I don't know how many times. It doesn't matter. whatever they say, whatever they respond back with, whatever they demean you with, it doesn't matter. You're breaking up. It's done. One thing I learned when I immigrated to Canada, and I've dealt a lot with government agencies and lawyers and things like that, is one of the best advice lawyers gave me is don't say anything you don't have to say. Don't say anything you're required, anything other than what you're required to say. Because the more you add into it, the more miscommunication, misinterpretation, and things like that. So I'm going to flip that a little bit and explain one thing. This goes for anybody in any relationship ever, okay? You have to do what's right for yourself, and you don't actually owe anybody but someone you took a vow with, right? Then you do owe them. But other than that, you don't owe them an explanation. Unless you are business partners, right? So you create an agreement of communication and establish something. Unless you're married where you agreed to vows, unless there was an established level of communication and expectations, you don't owe someone an explanation of why. So the reason why I say that is because our tendency is we try to over-explain ourselves. Oh, here's a bunch of reasons why. Don't hate me for it. Doesn't matter. So then now getting into the actual meat and potatoes, what would you say? So Walter, let's start with you because you already have kind of a really solid generic script. You kind of talked about it before, but let's bring it back again. Chris, while Walter's bringing in his, think about what your generic approach would be. Now, two important things, guys. First, I need you to list what method you would use. So calling, meeting in person, texting, email. Okay, so list that so the context is proper. And then second, try to keep it as short and generic as possible, unless you believe it should be longer.
Yeah.
Okay, Walter, we'll start with you.
So first of all, this might sound counterintuitive because we all, especially for a guy who teaches people how to get on the phone with people, when you're firing a client, there is a very good chance that the conversation on the phone or in person will make it incredibly difficult to do all the things we just said. Be humble. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't over-explain. Don't be negative. Don't make it about them. That's very hard to do in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
And as a secondary, if I'm firing a client, I want that documented in black and white, exactly what I said, when I said it, how professionally did I say it. And if they respond back to me with rudeness, with negativity, with whatever, it's documented.
Good advice.
So that is the reason that I don't break up with clients over the phone. I break up with clients via email. Now, I might say in the email, if you want to talk about this, give me a call, but I'm going to do that via email. So it's documented and I have the time to go, I sound like a jerk. Start over. Right? You don't get that opportunity on the phone. Once it's said, it's said. It's like shooting a gun. Once the bullet's out, you don't get to control it. No. So it's worth doing it on email. Take your time, deep breaths. Don't do it while you're mad, right? Process, and then lay it out on an email. Keep it short to the point. I always start with a friendly greeting. Hey, Jan, I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to have a conversation with you about something, right? Something simple, right? Simple little intro, nothing fancy. And then, like I said, I talk about, hey, listen, real estate is a relationship business. And I don't feel like you and I are compatible. Therefore, I'm going to formally end our business relationship, but no hard feelings. I want you to know this isn't personal at all. I just don't want to drag you through a rough transaction because you and I don't seem to be in the same frame of mind, right? The same personality types. If you need another agent, I am more than happy to recommend some to you that you can reach out to, right? I always do that as an extension of grace, right? Listen, I'm not cutting you off. You and I just aren't going to work together. I'm still going to try to help you in the way that I can, which is if you need me to, I'll put you in front of somebody else. And, of course, you have that conversation with the other agent. Listen, Chris, I'm sending this client to you because I know you got a little bit thicker skin than me. This is how they talk. This is what their their mindset. They're a little rough around the edges. Do you want them? And Chris will go, I got this.
Let's do it.
Chris will.
So
trust me, he will.
I will still do everything I can to help them while I gently let them know you and I are no longer working together. And then, just send that in an email, literally that short, to the point, one paragraph, maybe two at most. I don't give reasons. I don't give examples, because it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
All you're going to do is open up the possibility for them to come back at you with a counterpoint to those reasons. Well, you said, well, I did.
Right.
And then you get into this
a discussion, but it's not a discussion.
Spirals out of control.
Right.
No need for that.
Right.
This is a relationship business. I don't feel like you and I are compatible, and I don't want to drag you through a transaction that's going to be rough for us because we're not compatible. So we're going to part ways. If you need another agent, I am more than happy to put you in contact with some. Let me know if you have any questions at all. Have a wonderful day. Send.
Perfect.
Short,
so
sweet.
To summarize, Walter believes, and I am going to concur with this, I agree. This is one of the few instances that I wouldn't make the call first. I would have documented. Anybody who follows me, listens to me talk, I always say document everything. And I even say, when you do have a phone call, have a recap email.
Follow up.
That they respond to. Hey, Walter, great to talk to you about X, Y, and Z. And then make sure they respond to it. So I would agree, because how you break up with a client can and will be used against you should they file a complaint with your a governing body for your state.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Yeah.
So,
even something as simple as a Google review or a realtor.com review. It sounds so silly, but like I had a client who I didn't fire. I was working with a mom, and her young son was a nightmare. But the mom was a little elderly, so I was working with her kind of through the son, but the mom was my client. Mom had no issues with me at all. We got to the closing table on a new construction, a couple hiccups along the way. It's a new construction. And this gentleman left me a 1-star, the only 1-star Google review I have in my whole business career.
Rip.
And everything he said was factually inaccurate. It was lies.
Yeah.
So when I went to realtor.com and I said, this gentleman, one, it's a false review. It is not accurate. I have the documentation. Here's the email chain to prove that it's false. Two, it wasn't even my client. That review went away.
Right.
Nice.
Now, I didn't do anything.
Guys, usually that doesn't happen. It's because it was Walter, and he can make things happen.
It was because there was documentation clearly outlining where our communication was that led them to go, well, yeah, he said this, and this email from him dated this clearly says the opposite. The guy was lying. We're going to remove a fake review.
So do it in written form. Keep it short and concise. Don't make it personal. Don't explain your reasoning. You don't need to. Nope. And like he said, and this is so important, this isn't a discussion. This is a notice. This is a statement. Here's what's happening, and here's what to do next. And if you notice, he told them he gave them an opportunity of what to do next, which is, do you want me to set you up with someone who might be more compatible with you?
Yeah.
So that's really important, because part of Walter's beliefs, because I know Walter, Walter, correct me if I'm wrong, Walter is a believer. He's a Christian, which means that we don't abandon people. It doesn't mean we work with everyone. It doesn't mean that we wait on them hand and foot, but it does mean that we do everything in our power to get them on the right track.
Yep.
And headed in the right direction, even if that's not us. That's okay. Yeah. And so him saying, and then the important thing is he went and would talk to the agents. I have had difficult clients that I've referred, and I've done the exact same thing. Listen, I know you. You're an ex-cop. So you have had everybody say the most terrible things to you. This is why I'm calling you. Can you handle this? Here's what they've said. Here's what they've done. 9 times out of 10, if you know your people and you have a good network, they'll be like, yeah, no problem. I know that I can bring pretty much anybody to Chris. And I think at a core value too, I know that Chris won't do anything illegal or unethical. So if Chris says yes to a difficult client, I know that Chris is just going to get the job done. Yeah. And he'll weather through it. And I've seen that firsthand. Chris knows who I'm talking about. That was
guys, I have to jump off of here 5 minutes early. I apologize.
That's why I started with you, Walter. Thank you.
The last thing I will say, and then you guys can finish this up, is once you've sent that email, that says, we are no longer working together, but I'm happy to help you if you need to. If they respond in any way, if they try to engage, if it's tit for tat, you are under no obligation to answer them again. You've made your point clear. We are done here. End. Stop. You're not required to go back and forth with them to try to convince them that you're no longer working with them. It's your business. It's
Probably not going to be able to convince them of anything.
I'll leave it with that. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you guys soon.
So Chris,
There was 2.
what? And then there's 2. Yeah. Let me read this comment real quick. Algorithm doesn't like all 5 stars. This suggests that people think you are more human if you don't come across perfect. Yeah, I know, right? We want to look perfect, but the algorithms goes nobody's perfect. So,
They haven't met me yet.
okay, all right.
Hello,
Chris.
algorithms.
All right. Shh. It's okay, buddy. All right. So, Chris, what is your preferred method of what you encourage people, or you would personally encourage agents to use when breaking up with a client? And then 2, what's kind of your go-to generic thing that you would say when breaking up with a client?
So I don't have to break up with very many clients. It's extremely rare.
It should be rare, by the way, for everybody listening. It should be very rare that you need to break up with a client. If you're breaking up with clients consistently, it's probably how you're doing business, how you're attracting people, what you're saying, what you're doing. So just throwing that out there as someone who works with a ton of top producers, it's very rare you need to break up with a client. So anyway, continue, Chris.
Extremely rare. Like, I thought I was going to be able to push through. Like, there were some signs for the guy that I was talking about firing earlier. Thought I was going to be able to push through that. And then it finally just got to a point where I was like, I just really don't want to do this. So, and it wasn't I was even mad at the guy. I just didn't want to do it.
Right.
I quickly realized, I'm like, hey, look, there's a better way. So when it comes to firing a client, usually if a client no longer wants, it's more likely a client may no longer want to work with me for whatever reason, misunderstanding that they might have in the industry. They've talked to their cousin, Joe Blow, whoever, about something, and somebody gave them their opinion on something that I might have encouraged. They were completely uneducated, but they still followed that person because they trust that person. They know them better. And then they were like, hey, look, they don't even want to work with an agent. They don't want somebody telling them anything. Right. So usually it's been more common that the couple of times I've had somebody want to not do something, it's been the buyer side that wanted to end the contract. None of those buyers have bought a house either. Right.
Yeah.
So they just weren't in the position to listen to anyone. So things changed. But if I was,
so your preferred method is
preferred method is really, it's meet the clients where you are at the time that you're having the conversation.
In person?
No. If you're in person, yes, do it in person. If you're on the phone and things are going that direction, then have that conversation on the phone. If you're texting back and forth and that's the preferred communication method, then do it via text. And then if you're emailing back and forth and that's the preferred communication, meet them on the email. I'm going to match and mirror whatever preferred communication method my client wants usually.
Okay.
Right? So it's not about me at that point. Everything I do is about mirroring the clients where they are and where they want to be.
Yeah.
I have clients, I hate it. I have clients that email me asking me questions about listings and everything else. I hate it when they only email. They don't call me. They don't text me. They don't Facebook message me. They only want to email. And then within the 100 emails I get that day, and if I'm not at the house and I try to look through them, I might not have as fast of a response as I would if they would have just texted me and give me a call. Said, hey, man, like, I'm interested in this property. What can you tell me? And usually, if they're just emailing, they're not super serious clients either. That's the other thing that I found.
Interesting.
If they're just emailing and kind of like, hey, we're interested in this one. What are the restrictions? And then you never hear from them again. It's just because they like asking questions and looking at restrictions. They're not super serious. They're just kind of dragging their feet along the way. Those clients tend to take forever. The ones that only email take a long time. So regardless.
So Preferred method is you do
Meet
whatever
where they
their preferred method is.
Meet them where they are.
Okay.
That is my preferred method of any kind of communication, is meeting them where they want to be.
Now, what's your go-to? Here's roughly what I would pretty much always encourage everybody to say.
It's going to be, that's so hard to paraphrase in a particular situation. I'm probably not going to dive in and be as emotional about it as Walter is and talk about personality traits and differences. More than likely, I'm going to say, hey, looks like we might not be a right fit. I encourage you to, potentially pursue, another agent to represent you, whatever that is. I'm usually going to be a little bit more direct, a little bit more straightforward, but not be quite as emotional about it as Walter is.
So roughly what would you like? Can you give even just a slight example of kind of a, role play with me? You're breaking up with me. We're on a phone call.
Right. What have you done?
It doesn't, well.
It does matter. It does matter. That's the problem. You're currently trying to paraphrase something that is so broad that my response is going to be situational.
See, and I think, and there's nothing, by the way, everybody listening, there's nothing wrong with Chris having his method. I'm having mine. Walter has his. This is why we do these discussions, and it's not just one person, because I believe, and I don't even think I'm right necessarily. It's just, this is what I believe. I believe that pretty much you can respond almost the exact same way and break up with a client the exact same way, regardless of what they've done. Chris, he wants to meet the clients where you're at. So he makes it more directly in their communication line. And so I think that actually really does complement what you've already shown about yourself, which is that you want to meet them where they're at. So for you, context is important.
Right.
So I don't have a good
context. The context is important. The emotional aspect is less important to me. Right. I like having a strong emotional relationship. I like the positive emotions, but I do not dote and I do not care about the negative emotion side, right? I don't focus on that. I focus on the positive. So when there's that negative emotion, that negative connotation, just a total negative relationship, honestly, it's going to be rare that I get that far into that negative a relationship that I actually have to fire a client. Usually, if it's starting out that negative, they're never going to get past being a prospect. If it's truly that negative to where it's going to get to a point where I have to let them go. Even the guy that,
or you notice after showing a couple houses, I've had clients like that where you finally meet them in person and it is a totally different. It's like a whole different person that you met.
Whole different person. If I get to that point, they are still a prospect. I'm not the guy that says, hey, look, I'm amazing. Sign right here. We're going to be working together for the next year. Right? I don't do that. There's no point. I don't want to be stuck with them for the next year if I don't like them.
And there's some wisdom to that, and I really like that about your style because you really are you. You have your reasoning, and that's why we go back to the original 3 principles that I said, which is you need to know what you believe in. You need to know what you stand for, what you believe in, where your lines are.
Yeah.
If you don't know, if you try and get a buyer's or listing agreement rep signed because that's what someone told you to do, you're not going to have the confidence on 1, executing it, and then 2, not executing it. You need to know when. I know when I believe it's time. I know. And there's not really much leniency. Basically, for me, is like I'll show them 1 house, or it might be a day if I'm willing to dedicate that time.
Yeah.
But I will usually not do anything after that. I'll make an initial investment, okay? Because there's nothing wrong. They probably know 20 other real estate agents. And when they're meeting with you in person, a lot of times it's a date. They want to know who you are. They want to know your personality, how you guys mesh together. I mean, could you imagine that like you required someone to marry you before you guys ever met? Doesn't make sense, right? You'd think that's ludicrous and ridiculous. So when you're, and this is opinion, by the way, there are wonderful agents out there who will not meet a client without an agreement. They won't show them a house. That's between you and your business. I just know what I believe. And so I build my business around my beliefs. Facebook user, who is that, by the way? Who are you?
I know. Yeah. Who are you, Facebook user? And
I don't know why, but I feel like it's Jade. Am I wrong? Is it Jade? Tell me I'm right.
I don't know. So do I use buyer agreements? I use the minimum, the absolute minimum that's required in the state of Tennessee. And that is for me to write up a contract that says that I'm representing them. I have to have a buyer's agreement at that point. So whenever I fill out my documents to write the offer for them, that's when I fill out my buyer's rep agreement.
And so I'll usually do mine. So my strategy is similar to Chris's, but mine happens to be almost coincidental. Usually I'll include it with the offer, but typically that's because, quite honestly, the first round of showings, we're probably writing an offer. Now, if I invested time, and when I say invested time, I don't actually really care that much to show someone houses that are 10 minutes away from where I live.
Yeah.
For me, that's not as much an investment, so I'm not worried about protecting that investment as much. I might give them a couple extra showings. But if I drove 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour to do showings, I'll do it once. And then after that, we've had our date. If we're going to go down on a second date, we're going to establish a couple boundaries, right? For me, that's when I want to protect my investment and say, okay, now we're going to do a buyer's rep agreement, right? But again, most of the time I don't have to do that because I'm really, really particular and careful about how I do my showings. And almost always, before 3 or 4 showings, we're writing an offer. It is extremely rare that I've ever had to do 3 or 4 more showings to write an offer. I just realized the time though, and I'm supposed to be in a meeting. Guys, for everyone listening, drop us a comment on your go-to. What do you believe in? Where do you draw the line of when it's time to break up with a client? And what do you say? Do you call them? Do you take them out to dinner and say, hey, listen, it's not you, it's me? What do you do? It's extremely controversial and very unique, and it might help someone else. Maybe we can feature you even on one of the shows or on our social media, but what do you do? I hope you found value today. Every week, 9 a.m. Central, we go live, and we're talking about trending topics and controversial topics, and also topics that don't get a lot of attention but are part of the everyday business in real estate. So that's Scale Through the Fail, and that's kind of what we're doing. Chris, thanks for being here. Walter was here just earlier. And guys, leave a comment, and we will see you next week. Bye.